Yeah, thank you again for coming. I think we all really appreciate the way you've humanized the story with your book. You mentioned several times that there was a case that the Supreme Court gave, was it 17 years back or so, that supported laws against homosexual sodomy. And my question is, how do the constitutional arguments, again, a question about constitutionality, but how do they interplay? How is the Supreme Court able to respond to the arguments that their predecessors had made so quickly and so effectively to overturn that case?
Yeah, it's a great question that could be asked and answered on many, many levels. I could give you a good lawyerly answer, but I'm not going to. Instead, let me give you a different answer that I think is probably closer to the heart of the case. So in 1986, the Georgia sodomy law came before the Supreme Court. And after the oral argument in that case, the Supreme Court was just about evenly divided, 4-4. And the swing vote was a vote by Justice Lewis Powell, who was a genteel Southerner. And he could not decide how to vote. He initially believed that the court should strike down the Georgia sodomy law, but he just could not get his mind around the idea of homosexuality. Not surprising for a man, I guess, then in his 70s from the South. And so he went to his law clerk that he had. The justices hire, law clerks who help them draft opinions and do research and so forth. And he sat the law clerk down and turned to him and said, I just don't understand these people. I do not understand homosexuals. I've never met one. The law clerk to whom he was speaking was a closeted gay man who is thinking at the time Lewis Powell is saying this to him, should I come out to Justice Powell and say, as a matter of fact, you do know someone who's gay, he's working for you, I am that person. And he ultimately decided not to. Justice Powell flipped his vote in the case and ultimately sided with Georgia and was the fifth vote to uphold the Georgia sodomy law. 2 years later, he said publicly on a couple of different occasions that he believed he had voted incorrectly in the case and that he thought he got it wrong. 2 years too late to be to decide that case. So that's one end. Then look at the other end of the story in 2003. As Paul Smith, who was the oral advocate for Lawrence and Garner in the Supreme Court, was getting ready to get up and speak before the justices, separated by 17 years and a whole lot of cultural, social, and other legal change. As he's getting up, getting ready to give his argument before the court with all of this history behind him, he had been a Lewis Powell clerk in the late 70s and was himself a closeted gay man. It turns out Powell had a string of gay clerks through the late 70s and into the 80s. He's getting up to do this, and someone whispers in his ear that Justice O'Connor had just sent a baby gift to one of her former clerks and her same-sex partner. Now, to me, those two stories tell us the journey, not that we could tell in a kind of dry legal way, but in a human way about what happened in that 17-year period.
Not just on the court, but in America.
Not just on the court, in the whole society.
Yeah.
They in a microcosm, that's the change in a society. And that was driven by a whole lot of factors, by organization, by strategizing, by coming out of the closet. AIDS changed things. It brought people out of the closet. A lot of things had happened. But it does tell you, I think, that the justices themselves had been on a journey of learning. None of the justices could say in 2003 that they had never met a gay person. It was possible to say that in 1986. It was no longer possible to say that just 17 years later. Now, in theory, that shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter. I mean, they should have voted the way they voted, either way, in either decision, regardless. In practice, though, judges are not separate from the societies in which they live. And if you live in a society where a group of people are viewed only as a kind of criminal class, you have one view about their rights. If you live in a society, on the other hand, that has come to appreciate that they make contributions in the military, that they are with us on the job, that they're in our families, you have a wholly different view about their status. And I can't see that that can help but have an effect on your view of the Constitution and the principles that it enshrines.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, with the philosophy of leaving you wanting more, I'm going to end it now. Dale will be happy to sign his book. It is a terrific book. It's a gripping read. I do believe it will be a movie. I'm glad you all were here tonight to be part of this event. Thank you so much. Please come back, and thank you, Dale, for joining us.